The creature we're after is right below the surface. Let me show you what I found. So if you can see down in there, that is the top ridge. And what I want to do is just whoosh. Whoa. Quite the adventure to get out to the location we're on today. I had to paddle out about 1.5 miles from the marina here on the South Shore, just south of Boston. And now we're on foot because the water is way too shallow to paddle. We're going to park the kayak just up here and try to anchor it so it doesn't float away. And hopefully the tide doesn't come back in before we get back to the kayak. That would be a bad day. I'd be swimming 1 mile back to home. Kayak all the way up, grab our backpack, and we are going to head off on the greatest clamming adventure you've ever witnessed. Well, at least I hope. All right, here we go. The mouth of the estuary or salt marsh. You'll find a lot of these places have different names. And this is an intertidal zone, so that means the tide's gonna go up and down. It's full of all kinds of different substrates, like pretty much pure sand, just like that. And if you just walk a little further up here, it gets very organic and rooted, almost like a mossy mud. That's what's really cool about this environment. There's a lot of different looks. And this different substrate from spot to spot is also going to provide environments for a lot of different kinds of animals. But today in particular, we are looking for this soft-shelled clam. This is gonna be a little tricky to get down. Oh boy. Whew, here we go, into the adventure. Whoa, whoa, oh yeah, oh yeah. Whew. Oh, here's a crab. What do we have here? Look at this guy. All right, there we go. First creature of the trip. And this one is familiar if you've already seen our tide pool adventure in New England, which we recently released. And let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spikes on each side of the eye. Pop quiz, what kind of crab is this? If you guessed green crab, you are absolutely correct. That's a good sign, healthy environment, lots of life. Now this is an invasive predatory crab, not necessarily the best thing for these environments, but they are established at this point. And anytime you're looking for animals and you see other creatures, that's a very good sign. So I'm gonna let this crab go. And we're gonna talk about this. This is no longer a living bivalve, but it was recently. This is the Atlantic version of a razor clam, so they're also called jackknife clams. These are some of the fastest bivalves that live in this environment. As we get more into this estuary, you'll see there's going to be more and more shell debris around because there are a lot of things out here in this environment that eat these bivalves. This place in particular has a high concentration of soft shell clams, today's target species. And I can see what we're looking for just ahead of us. Woo! All right, everybody, we finally made it. We had a long paddle out, had a long hike into this estuary, but the creature we're after is right below the surface in front of us. Now, the reason I know this is because of those. You see all those little holes? Called a clam show. And it's basically a telltale sign that if there's a hole in the surface of the sand, it's showing that there's a clam that lives just below the surface. So first things first, let me get set up, get all the cameras situated, and then I'll put on some gloves, we'll start digging, and I'm gonna show you some pretty cool things about some clams you've probably never seen before. Here we go. The clams we've been searching for today that we've traveled miles to find are just a few inches below the surface. Now, there's no way to find these clams without getting a little bit dirty, so we're just gonna embrace it. I'm using gloves because I'm worried about getting sliced by all the shells and fragments that are in the soil. You can see some of the clam shows here. There's probably dozens of clams down in this soil. All right, here we go. Gonna dig in. Now you wanna dig carefully. They're called soft shell clams for a reason. These clams have a very brittle shell, and if you're not careful, you can crack them quite easily. And what I'm feeling for are the ridges of the side of the clam, because these clams are vertical in the soil, meaning they lay on their side, not flat like the hard shell clams. I got one, okay. First clam of the day, this is exciting. All right, I'm just gonna move this back. Here we go, I'm gonna wiggle it out. Oh, there it is. Our first soft shell clam. Look at that one. Oh, it's squirting everywhere. They actually are called squirting clams or spraying clams because they do squirt water out just like that. But that's a really good one to look at. We're gonna put that off to the side. Oh, okay, got another one. Let me show you what I found. I'm gonna get the other camera. So if you can see down in there, that is the top ridge of a clam. And what I wanna do is just take it out, just like that. Check that out. That is a nice soft shell clam. Let's see if we can find one more. You can see here, that's why I'm wearing gloves. You have all these fragments of shells down in the soil. See if we can find one more. Oh yeah, here we go. There we go. Oh yeah, that's a good one. I think that's gonna do it for the finding of clams. We're gonna leave this open right now because we're gonna put all the clams back in, but I'm going to get out a container, fill it with some clear water, clean off these clams so we can take a super close look at why this is such a bizarre creature. Okay. All right, there we go. Let's first talk about the shell of these clams. Now these shells are very brittle. And like I said, when we were digging them up, we had to be super careful as to not crack the shell. If the shell is cracked, the clam can actually get sick and die. So we would not want that to happen. But these shells are actually made out of calcium carbonate produced by the organism itself from the things that it eats. It will build layer after layer of shell. It will grow up to a size of 4 inches in length. They are called bivalves because they have 2 shells, and that's why it gets named bi, meaning 2. And this clam in particular is interesting because it cannot close all the way. A lot of other mollusks and bivalves can actually close up in their shells all the way. They're always looking kind of half open. Don't worry, they're not sick. That's exactly how they're supposed to be. You see that little nubbin? That is a siphon, and the siphon has 2 tubes, and believe it or not, this siphon can stick up to the surface 8 to 12 inches. But right now the clam is taking cover. It's very bright out, so it's gonna be as tucked in as it can. When the tide comes back in and this clam is back in the soil, it will put that siphon all the way up to the surface. And that's what's making all these clam shows. That's what gave away the clam's location to us for this adventure. Now what's cool about this siphon is it has 2 tubes, one for taking in water and one for expelling water. These clams are filter feeders, so when they're drawing in water through one side of the siphon, they're actually taking that water across their gills to absorb the oxygen, and then all the food that they're eating, which is that microscopic algae in the water, goes to their mouth and then it goes all the way through their digestive system. And these clams, believe it or not, can filter up to 50 liters of water a day. And for a little creature like that, that's pretty impressive. So pretty much all day long, when there's water covering where they live, they're like a vacuum cleaner, just drinking up and filtering that water. Pretty cool. Now, the other thing that I find particularly interesting about these clams is their life cycle. They don't start life right here in the soil. They actually start as planktonic larvae. So the male and female clams will spray their gametes and their eggs into the water column through their siphons, and they will float out to sea. Now, when those eggs hatch, for the first few weeks of life, these clams are actually free swimming organisms or larvae. And when they grow big enough and become heavy enough, they will actually sink to the bottom. They will affix themselves to grow even larger by using byssal, which is that spider web-like strandy stuff. Now here's the really interesting part, and the one that really impresses me. These clams know when they grow large enough, release that byssal, and they will actually ride the tide back into the estuaries. And once they find the perfect spot with the right kind of soil, they will use their foot and they will dig down. And once they're there, they will spend their entire rest of their existence right in that place, which could be up to 12 years. And I think that life cycle has to be one of the most impressive things that I learned when researching this bivalve. And I'm happy that I finally got to share it with you here today and to show you these really cool and bizarre soft shell clams. Well, that about does it for us. Let's put these clams back and head home. I'm Mark Vins. Be brave, stay wild. We'll see you on the next adventure. All right, back you go. If you enjoyed this adventure, make sure to check out the time we explored the West Coast for a whole new cast of spiky and slimy tide pool creatures.